The morning of my sister's wedding, I was standing in the bridal suite helping her fasten the last button on her dress when my mother-in-law walked in without knocking. Not my mother-in-law. My brother-in-law's mother. But she'd been treating me like I was hers to manage for the past 3 years, so the distinction never seemed to matter to her. "We need to talk," she said. "Not to my sister. To me." My sister caught my eye in the mirror. I gave her a small shake of my head. "Not now. Not today. But Lorraine, that's what I'll call her, because even now I can't bring myself to say her full name without my chest tightening." Had never once in her life waited for a good moment. She set her purse down on the vanity like she owned the room, looked at my sister's reflection, and smiled the kind of smile that doesn't reach anything above the mouth. "Audrey, you look beautiful," she said. Then she turned to me. "Could you give us a moment?" I almost left. That's the part I keep coming back to when I replay it. I almost left, but my sister reached back and grabbed my wrist. "Whatever you need to say to me, Lorraine, you can say in front of my sister." Lorraine's smile didn't falter. That was the thing about her. She'd spent 63 years perfecting the art of being terrible with a pleasant expression. "Of course," she said. She opened her purse and pulled out a folded envelope. She set it on the vanity next to my sister's bouquet, right between the white roses and the tube of lipstick my sister had been holding for an hour without using. "I just need Audrey to sign this before the ceremony. It's a formality. Nothing dramatic." My sister didn't touch the envelope. Neither did I. I'd learned by then that anything Lorraine called a formality was never actually a formality. I should back up. My sister Audrey had been with her fiancé, Griffin, for 4 years. Griffin is a genuinely good person. That part matters. He wasn't the problem. He never had been. He was the kind of man who remembered that my sister took her coffee with oat milk and not regular, who showed up to our mother's birthday dinner with flowers he'd picked himself because he knew she preferred that to store-bought arrangements. He loved my sister in the way you can tell is real because it's boring and consistent and doesn't require an audience. His mother, however. Lorraine had spent those same 4 years finding increasingly creative ways to make my sister feel like a guest in her own relationship. She commented on Audrey's weight at Thanksgiving. She called Griffin's ex-girlfriend such a sweetheart loudly and often. She told my sister once, over Christmas brunch, with other people at the table, that she was surprised Griffin went that direction when there were women from more established families who had expressed interest. Audrey had cried in my car on the way home that day. Not loud crying, the quiet kind. The kind where you don't want anyone to know how much something got in. I told her then what I believed. Griffin would figure it out. Griffin would handle it. Good people, given time, usually do. I was mostly right. Griffin had over the years gently but consistently put distance between Lorraine's behaviour and my sister. He'd stopped attending family dinners where Lorraine had made comments. He'd had conversations with her that I wasn't present for, but that seemed, at least on the surface, to result in things being slightly more manageable. The wedding had been planned for over a year, a venue in the Hudson Valley mid-October, the kind of afternoon where the leaves were just past peak and the light came in gold and low. My sister had been calm about almost all of it. She wasn't a person who needed perfect. She just wanted married to Griffin, and everything else was secondary. I had driven up the night before with my husband and our daughter, who was 5 and had very strong feelings about her flower girl dress. We'd stayed at the inn down the road, had dinner with Audrey and a few close friends, laughed until late. It had felt like the beginning of something good. I should have known that Lorraine had been quiet for a reason. The envelope sat on the vanity. Audrey looked at it, then at Lorraine. "What is it?" "Just a small financial agreement," Lorraine said. "Griffin's grandfather left him a trust. There are conditions about how assets are divided in the event of a separation. Nothing we expect to ever be relevant, but the family's attorney felt it was prudent." Audrey's hand was still on my wrist. I picked up the envelope. Lorraine's eyes moved to me immediately. "That's really for Audrey." "She's my sister," I said. "I'm reading it." What was inside was not small. What was inside was not a formality. What was inside was a document, 4 pages, dense, printed on what looked like real legal letterhead. that laid out in language that clearly required a lawyer to fully interpret that in the event of a divorce, Audrey would be entitled to nothing from Griffin's family trust, would waive any claim to the property his grandfather had left him in upstate New York, and this was the part that made my hands go very still, would assume personal liability for a percentage of any outstanding business debts Griffin might accrue during the marriage. Regardless of whether she was involved in those business decisions, she got nothing. She owed everything. I looked up at Lorraine. "She's not signing this," I said. Lorraine's expression shifted just slightly, the pleasant mask slipping a fraction of an inch. "I understand it might seem. She's not signing this," I said again. "And Griffin doesn't know you're here, does he?" A pause. That pause told me everything. Audrey took the document from my hands. She read it herself, slowly, in the way she reads everything, methodically, word by word, not skimming. I watched her face move through surprise and then into something quieter and harder. "Lorraine," Audrey said finally, "I need you to leave this room." "Audrey, I really think if you just now," my sister said, "please." Lorraine left. She took her purse. She did not take the document. My sister sat down on the small velvet bench in front of the vanity. She set the papers on her lap. For a moment she didn't say anything. "She did this on purpose," Audrey said. "The timing. She did this right now because she thought I wouldn't have time to think." "I know. She thought I'd either sign it or be too upset to get married today, and either way she wins something." "I know." Audrey looked down at the papers. "I'm not signing this." "Good. But I need to talk to Griffin." "Yes." She stood up, and she was still in her wedding dress, and her hair was done, and she looked like someone walking into a very different kind of moment than the one she'd been preparing for all morning. She handed me the document. "Can you hold on to this?" I held on to it. I don't know exactly what happened in the 20 minutes Audrey spent with Griffin before the ceremony. I was in the hallway with my daughter, who had found a decorative pumpkin near the staircase and was deeply invested in it, and I was trying to answer her questions about whether pumpkins have feelings while also keeping one eye on the closed door at the end of the corridor. When Audrey came out, Griffin was with her. His jaw was set in the particular way of a man who is very angry and working very hard not to show it in a way that would make things worse. He saw me. He looked at the document in my hand. He said, "Can I see that?" I gave it to him. He read it. Not all of it. He got about halfway down the first page and then he stopped and looked up. "I didn't know about this," he said. "I know," I told him. "I need to." He stopped. He looked at my sister. There was a conversation happening between them that didn't require words, the kind that takes years to build. "I need to handle this." My sister nodded. He went to find his mother. We didn't follow him. We could hear from down the hall the sound of voices, Griffin's low and controlled, Lorraine's rising into the register she used when she felt cornered. Then it went quiet. Then a door opened and closed. Griffin came back. He looked tired in the way you look when something you suspected has been confirmed and you'd hoped you were wrong. "She's going to behave," he said. "She's not happy." "But she's going to behave." My sister took his hand. "Are we doing this?" she asked. "If you still want to," he said. "Nothing about this changes what I want. But if you need time, I've had 4 years," Audrey said. "I don't need more time. I want to marry you." The ceremony was held in the orchard behind the venue. The light was exactly what the photographer had hoped for. My daughter scattered petals with tremendous seriousness, stopping twice to make sure they were evenly distributed. The officiant, an old friend of Griffin's from college, spoke about how marriage isn't a destination but a practice, which is one of those things that sounds like a cliche until you watch 2 people you love say yes to each other and suddenly it's just true. Audrey and Griffin wrote their own vows. His made her laugh, hers made him cry, which made everyone else cry, which is the correct order of things. I stood with the other bridesmaids and I held the document in my small clutch purse, and I thought about how close we had come to this not happening. How easy it would have been for my sister to be too blindsided, too hurt, too worried about causing a scene. How Lorraine had counted on that. on the embarrassment of the moment outweighing the math of the situation. She'd underestimated Audrey. She'd also underestimated me, but mostly she'd underestimated Audrey. The reception was in the barn attached to the property, and for most of it, things were fine. Good food, a band that knew how to read a room. My daughter fell asleep under the table between the salad and the main course, which is the most honest review you can give of a wedding. I watched Lorraine from across the room. She sat at the family table with Griffin's aunts and cousins and his father, who was a quiet, kind man who seemed perpetually apologetic on behalf of his wife, without ever quite managing to address the source of the problem. She smiled and laughed and clinked her champagne glass and looked from a distance, like any other proud mother of the groom. I knew what was in her purse, though. A version of those papers, or the intention to produce another version. I'd seen how people like Lorraine operated. Today was a setback, not a surrender. After the toasts, my sister found me near the bar. She's been trying to talk to Griffin all night, Audrey said quietly. I know. He's avoiding her. Good. My sister looked at me. I'm not going to spend my marriage like this, Lenora. My name is Lenora. Nobody calls me that except my sister when she's being serious. I know, I said. I need something to change, not eventually. Starting now. I looked at the document in my clutch. I had photographed every page of it on my phone before the ceremony, a habit I'd picked up from years of working in financial compliance, where you learn early that paper has a way of disappearing when people don't want it found. I have an idea, I said, but you have to be okay with it not being quiet. She looked at me for a long moment. I've been quiet for 4 years, she said. The best man's speech had just ended. The microphone was still live on the small stage near the dance floor. The band was taking a short break. There was that loose, comfortable noise of 200 people talking and laughing and existing in the easy middle stretch of a good reception. I walked up to the stage. I picked up the microphone. The room quieted the way rooms do when they're not sure if something planned or something unplanned is happening. Hi, I said. I'm Lenora. I'm the bride's sister and the maid of honor, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll be quick. Griffin looked at me from the sweetheart table with an expression I couldn't fully read. My sister gave me the smallest nod. I've been given a gift tonight, I said, not intentionally, but sometimes people show you exactly who they are at moments when they think you're too overwhelmed to notice, and that's actually a kind of gift. It tells you what you're working with. The room was very quiet now. A few hours before this ceremony, someone handed my sister a document and asked her to sign it. This document, in short, said that if her marriage ended, she would walk away with nothing, and might actually walk away owing money she had no part in creating. I paused. She was asked to sign this in her wedding dress 40 minutes before she walked down the aisle. I heard a ripple move through the room. Not loud. More like the shift of 200 people adjusting their understanding of what kind of evening this was. My sister didn't sign it, I said, because my sister is smarter and braver than anyone who put that document together gave her credit for. And her husband, my brother-in-law, who I am genuinely lucky to have, didn't know about it and was horrified when he found out. Griffin, from across the room, gave a single nod. I'm not here to cause a scene, I said. I'm here because I love my sister, and I've watched someone work very hard for 4 years to make her feel small in this family, and I wanted to be clearly on record in front of everyone who loves these two people, that what happened today was not okay, and that it isn't going to be quietly absorbed and forgotten. I looked directly at Lorraine's table. Not this time. Lorraine's face was the color of the white tablecloth. I want to toast my sister and her husband, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt, who are good and kind and deserve every good thing. And I want to say to anyone who is listening that love is not a transaction. You don't get to put a price on someone's place in their own marriage. And you definitely... I lifted my glass. Don't do it on the wedding day. 200 people lifted their glasses. The applause, when it came, was not polite. It was the real kind. Lorraine left the reception 40 minutes later. She told people she had a headache. I heard this secondhand from Griffin's aunt, who told me with a look that communicated she had her own opinions about Lorraine that predated this evening by several decades. Griffin's father found me near the end of the night. He was a man of very few words, which meant that when he used them, They landed. "Thank you," he said, "for protecting my daughter-in-law." I didn't know what to say to that. I said, "She would have handled it herself." "I know," he said, "but she shouldn't have had to." The drive home the next afternoon was long and quiet in the good way. My husband drove. My daughter slept in the back seat with her flower girl dress pulled up under her head as a pillow. I watched the Hudson Valley give way to highway and then to familiar exits. My sister texted me from her honeymoon hotel. "Griffin talked to his mother this morning. He told her things are going to be different. I don't know what that means yet, but he meant it." Then, a minute later, "Thank you for picking up the microphone." I looked out the window at the highway. I thought about Lorraine, sitting in her beautiful dress at her son's wedding, watching the room not go the way she planned. I thought about the document, still photographed on my phone, in case it was ever needed again. I thought about my sister in her wedding dress in that bridal suite, hand on my wrist, making the choice not to be alone in the moment. Some people spend years believing that if they keep things quiet enough, the difficult people in their lives will eventually become manageable. That patience is the same thing as strategy. I had believed that for a while too. But there's a difference between choosing peace and choosing silence. One of them you do for yourself. The other one you do for someone who's counting on you not to speak. I had been quiet for 4 years. I wasn't going to be quiet for 4 more.